We are back yet again on the Tik Tok podcast to give you our Week 14 NFL predictions for the 2022 season. And starting these off, we are going to give you a Thursday night game, which totally is not being recorded after the fact. But I predict the Rams are going to triumph over the Raiders after a last-second Baker Mayfield touchdown drive to give them a 17-16-ish win.
Yeah, we totally are not recording this after that game happened already. Pretty epic conclusion, if you ask me.
You got a prediction for it, Tristan? You got to piggyback off mine.
I mean, heading into that game, I was expecting the Raiders to win. I thought, Derek Carr and Devontae Adams would have another electric night. I thought they were going to expose Jalen Ramsey deep down the field. But, that may not happen. If Baker Mayfield steps in that game, he may be able to pull off the victory. Happy for him if he's able to do it. 2 days rest. Impressive.
Very impressive indeed, hypothetically. On to these Sunday games, and we've got a dynamic AFC East matchup between the Buffalo Bills hosting the New York Jets. And the Jets are on fire. They barely lost to the Minnesota Vikings under Mike White. The Vikings tended to beat the Bills previously and are now ready to take on their divisional rival in order to solidify their playoff push. They are still right on that edge right now. They are a few losses away from being out of the postseason. On the other sideline, the Bills, they've been dealing with some issues. Josh Allen has not been himself. He's thrown a bunch of passing yards or a bunch of red zone interceptions. He has not looked that great the past few weeks, but I think that will change. I know the Jets have a good defense, but Sauce Gardner is young. He is exploitable. I think they are going to bully Sauce every chance they get. He's not fast enough to keep up with Gabe Davis. He's not skilled enough to keep up with Stephon Diggs. I think that is going to be the marquee matchup. Sauce is going to get sauced. The Bills are going to have a good passing attack. Allen hopefully will not throw any red zone interceptions, and the Bills will blow off, I'd say, a 28-14 win. Maybe 21.
The Jets are a significantly better team now. Now that Mike White is the starter, he is significantly better than Zach Wilson. And I know, and that's not to say that he's some superstar. He's not a top 15 quarterback in the NFL. He may not be a top 20 quarterback in the NFL, but he gives the Jets a chance to win because he's not Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson was awful, and especially just due to how good that Jets defense is. Their front seven's great. Their secondary's great. They do a lot of things really well, and I won't be surprised if we get a couple of those horrible Josh Allen interceptions, or maybe they get back there and sack him a couple times. They are probably going to create turnovers, and they're probably going to force some fourth downs and some punts that we normally don't see out of this Bills offense. But at the end of the day, it's still the Bills offense. Josh Allen is still Josh Allen. Stephon Diggs is still Stephon Diggs. And that offense is going to be able to put up enough points to outscore Mike White. So I think the Bills will win. But like I said, their defense is great. The Jets are better with Mike White. Won't be surprised if it winds up being a close one.
Bills defense honestly has not been as spectacular as we all expected, particularly since the Von Miller injury. But you have so little respect for Mike White. Clearly a top 10, clearly a top 20 quarterback. What are we doing here? Who are we kidding? Mike White is better than pretty much every quarterback in that division besides maybe Josh Allen. Let's not be disrespectful here. You know who Mike White is. The fans know who Mike White is. We don't need to live in this little make-believe world. Oh, he's a bad guy. Mike White's that motherfucker, and you need to accept it.
Well, they're also playing at Orchard Park, so it is a home game for the Bills.
Indeed. The only New York-based football team, the Buffalo Bills. On to the wonderful city of Cincinnati, where the Bengals will be hosting the Browns. And you know who is back for the Browns. He had a terrible opening game against the Texans, scored 0 offensive touchdowns, but Cleveland just seems to have the Bengals number. As much as I dislike Deshaun Watson, as much as I dislike everything about the Browns organization, I do not anticipate that changing. The Browns pass rush is still elite. Their defense is amazing. They put on a spectacular show against the Texans last week with multiple touchdowns, had a phenomenal special teams play, and they are going to be the deciding factor in this one. The Bengals don't have a great defense. They don't have a particularly talented offensive base, in my opinion, outside their big 3 players. Joe Mixon's been struggling with injury. I don't think he's going to be a factor if he even plays, and their offensive line stinks. The Bengals are in danger. This is an upset. Joe Burrow has never beat the Browns, and that will not change after this game.
Isaiah, I feel like you need to drop our hatred for the Browns fan base a little bit when making this prediction. And the Bengals fan base. And to all those Bengals fans from last year, I just want to know, I haven't forgotten about that, and I still think a majority of you are delusional, but that has never stopped me from remaining objective when making predictions. Now that that's out of the way, the Bengals are going to take the Browns outside, and they are going to beat the brakes off them. Deshaun Watson is a bad quarterback. 700 days was too too long of a break for him. He looked incompetent against the worst team in the NFL last week, and the only reason the Browns won that game is because of their defense and special teams. Their offense is incompetent, and when you're playing the Bengals that have one of the best offenses in the NFL, the best receiving core in the NFL, Joe Mixon's finally back, so they're going to have him and P. Ryan, who's going to come on and establish himself over the last few weeks. The Browns aren't going to be able to keep up with that. The Bengals are going to beat the brakes off the Browns. So many B words. Bengals, Browns. And they are going to win this game.
Beat the brakes off twice, so you're doing it to yourself a little bit.
I am doing it to myself. But I think they're going to come away with the win. The Browns, their offense is just not put together. They need Baker Mayfield back, or they needed to throw Jacoby Brissett in there, because Deshaun's not going to get it done.
Well, they're not getting Baker back. Everyone wants Baker, but no one's getting Baker, because Baker's Baker, you know? Get baked, man. That's like 8 more B's right there.
Let him bake.
On to the Dallas Cowboys. So, our friends in Texas are taking on our other friends in Texas. The Texans are 1-10-1. They're horrible. They're bad. Davis Mills, benched. Their running back, star, rookie, benched. Their defense should all be benched. And they are facing the Red Hot Cowboys. The Cowboys who thumped the Vikings. The Cowboys who are trying to make a push for NFC East superiority. And the Cowboys who are about to drop 40 points on their head. I feel bad for the Texans. I feel bad for their fans. The only silver lining is they are going to get a really good quarterback in Bryce Young with a first overall pick. But hey, they're getting blasted by the Cowboys this week. It's not going to be close. Jerry Jones is going to flex his Texas superiority and run a train on the Texans.
There's not much to say here. The Texans couldn't beat a team last week that scored 27 points with 0 offensive touchdowns. And when that happens, you don't have any chance at beating the Dallas Cowboys, who have the best pass rush in the NFL, the second best defense in the NFL, probably right behind the 49ers. Some may have them first. And with their offense, with 2 running backs, CeeDee Lamb doing his thing, Michael Gallup kind of getting back in the swing of things, it's going to be, like you said, a 40-0 blowout, something along those lines. I wouldn't be surprised if they wind up putting 60. They're probably going to bench their starters by halftime.
Second win of the year. We're jinxing. We're saying too many nice things about our friends in Dallas. We are setting them up.
But if they lose, then we get to clown them, so.
Either or. It's not that bad. I'll take another wrong prediction. Lord knows I've made plenty of those. On to a battle in the North, where the Vikings will be facing Dan Campbell, Jared Goff, Amon-Ra St. Brown, the dynamic duo backfield, a phenomenal offensive line, and a defense which is not that good, but I'm still trying to say nice things about them. The Lions are red hot. They are beating good teams. Well, they're beating teams. They're in the NFL, so they're good teams. The Vikings, on the other end, also red hot, still a little bit reeling from the loss to the Cowboys 3 weeks ago, but beat the Patriots when they had a winning record, beat the Jets who had a winning record with Mike White, very impressive win right there, and are now going to be facing the Lions. It's going to be a good game. All the Vikings games this year are good games, or at least they're close, unless of course you're in the NFC East. But I don't see Dan Campbell pulling off this upset. It's indoors, it's at 1 p.m. Kirk Cousins is going to thrive. The Lions don't have particularly good cornerbacks. Their front seven shaky at spots. And I believe Cook, Jefferson, and Thielen are all going to have good days. This is going to be a Vikings win, but it's going to be closer than you think. And a loss here will not prove Dan Campbell is a bad coach. You will use any opportunity you can to hate on this man, even though he outplayed that bum in New York leading the Giants. Excuse me, that bum in New Jersey leading the New York Giants.
Well, the Lions being favored against a 10-win Vikings team is possibly the most Vikings thing I've ever heard, or you've ever heard, Isaiah. It comes as no shock to Vikings fans that this is happening. The Lions offense, in my opinion, is unstoppable with Amon-Ra St. Brown on the field. Jared Goff becomes another quarterback when he's throwing to Amon-Ra St. Brown. And they also have DeAndre Swift is finally getting back involved in the offense. Jamal Williams has been very good in those short yardage situations, especially on the goal line. It doesn't even make sense how many goal lines he's been able to get this season, and he's been pissing fantasy managers off all year long because he's taking touchdowns away from DeAndre Swift. With that being said, I think the Lions wind up winning this game. Their offense has been very good. They barely lost to the Bills. They can beat good teams. And the Vikings, they're not really spectacular anywhere. They don't have the best passing game in the NFL. They don't have the best rushing attack. Their defense isn't all that great. And that's why they've come away with 10 wins this season, because a lot of the teams they've been playing, they're not good in various aspects of their
teams
team.
They beat, the Bills, the Patriots, and the Jets. Those are just bad teams, right?
Well, when they played the Bills, Josh Allen was coming off of an injury, so...
When they played the Bills, they beat the Bills. When they played the Patriots, they beat the Patriots. When they played the Jets, they beat Mike White. Don't even talk about the Cowboys game.
They beat the
Lions
Patriots. You know, we'll get to the Patriots in a bit, but that's not an impressive win.
Winning team, primetime game for Kirk Cousins. That's impressive. We're moving the goalpost a little bit. On to New Jersey, where the New York Giants will be facing off against the Philadelphia Eagles at MetLife Stadium. And I don't like the Eagles much. I'm not a big fan. I'm not a supporter. Don't love the team. Don't love the culture. Don't love the players. Jason Kelsey's alright, but he's not as good as his brother. That's besides the fact. The Giants, though, they're so one-dimensional offensively. Daniel Jones just can't do anything. He doesn't have receivers. His arm's not that strong downfield. And all he's good at is running in a straight line, which, hey, pairs well with Saquon Barkley, who's also good at running in straight lines. Their defense, very solid, rock solid, but not solid enough to stop Jalen Hurts. Not solid enough to stop Devontae Smith. Not solid enough to stop Miles Sanders. And Lord knows they are not solid enough to stop A.J. Brown, one of the best receivers in the NFL, a absolute fleece to wind up here from the Titans. So this game, pretty predictable. The Eagles are going to win. The Giants will put up a fight. They'll keep the clock moving. It's not going to be a blowout, but the city of brotherly love will triumph here.
Yeah, and when you take a look at their rosters, the only place you can probably argue the Giants are better at than the Eagles is interior pass rushers at defensive tackle with Dexter Lawrence and Leonard Williams. But when it comes down to this game, Leonard Williams got hurt last week. He's likely not playing against the Eagles. So when you're missing Leonard Williams and Dexter Lawrence is the only one out there who's going to be capable of stopping the run and generating any pressure from the inside, it is going to be a long day against the Philadelphia Eagles. So if he was playing, maybe there's a small opportunity where they plug up the middle of the offensive line. Jalen Hurts can't quite get the run game going. Miles Sanders can't quite get the run game going. And they force a couple weird, bad turnovers in an NFC East matchup. But because Leonard Williams is not on the field and it's just going to be Dexter Lawrence, I don't really see a way for the Giants to conceivably win because, as I already stated, they're worse at every single position on the field. So I think the Eagles should win this one. But if the Giants pull it out, I'll be happy. Oh, and that, not to mention, Saquon just got added to the injury report. Completely forgot to mention that.
And I will be editing my fantasy lineup as I tell you why the Steelers are going to upset the Ravens. Look, I like Tyler Huntley as much as the next guy, but he's not him. He scored 10 points last week. He had a last-second drive. That's only because he exhausted the Broncos' defense because Russ left him on the field for 80 minutes, it felt like. And he's going to be facing off against a comparable defense, a defense which has been revitalized by TJ Watt, a defense which is trying desperately to protect Mike Tomlin's 500 streak. And they're going to do it. They're going to get to 6-7 this week. I don't care that Kenny Pickett's quarterback. He's been playing better these weeks. It doesn't matter. I don't care that they haven't been able to run the ball effectively all year. They are going to be able to beat the Ravens because the Ravens are simply not going to score more than 20 points. And as many issues as the Steelers have, they are going to be able to put up at least 20 against a weak Ravens defense, which has been lackluster all year and let everybody down. I predict another dominant performance from Watt, another phenomenal steel curtain showing, and another win for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah, we never know what we're going to get out of the Ravens at this point. They have these bunch of weird losses where they lose to bad teams, and then they play these super close games against really good teams, and in some instances, lose it at the end, or in other instances, they beat the Cincinnati Bengals. And then when you consider the fact that they're not going to have Lamar Jackson, it even throws another element into the game where you're like, do they really have a chance at winning? What type of Baltimore Ravens are we going to see? And with the Pittsburgh Steelers, they have turned things around since TJ Watt stepped back on the field with them. The offense has been better. The defense has been better. They have really looked like an actual competent football team since TJ Watt has gotten back there. So I think the Steelers are going to win this game. They're 3-1 over their last 4, and they are going to continue their track to saving Mike Tomlin's 500 and above record. So I think the Steelers wind up winning this game with the Lamar Jackson-less Ravens out there.
On to the wonderful, wonderful place known as Tennessee, where the Titans face off against the Jacksonville Jaguars. And everybody knows what happens when Derrick Henry gets a chance to run against an AFC South defense. He is going for, at the minimum, $180, maybe $250 if he's feeling good about it. And he will bulldoze the Jacksonville Jaguars. He himself will bulldoze the Jaguars. I'll rephrase it. They've got good defense compared to some other parts of the team. They're better in their offense. But the reason King Henry is going to get so many yards, the Jaguars are going to hold tough a little bit offensively. It's not going to be a complete blowout. Henry's going to have an amazing game, but he's going to need to have an amazing game. It's going to be a close one. It's going to be a gritty one. I'd say like a 24-17, 28-20 type game where King Henry or Rokes ultimately prevail and lead the Titans to a win. But T-Law is going to be able to keep up. Titans have a good defense, but Lawrence gradually improving. Going to have a good game. Not a great game, not a phenomenal game, not a bad game, a good game, an alright game. And an alright game is enough to keep a pass-first offense in contention with a run-first offense. So I got the Titans, but it's going to be a bit closer than some people might think.
Yeah, the Jaguars, they really are a mixed bag this season. Just got manhandled by the Lions. But on the Titans side of things, they are the middest of mid football teams, and I will continue to hammer that home. And with Treylon Burks not on the field, I think as everyone can see, their receiving core is awful. Robert Woods doesn't get anything done. Nikhil Westbrook-Akina doesn't get anything done. Ryan Tannehill can't get the ball out to those guys when Treylon Burks is on the field. Their pass offense is almost non-existent. And you kind of slighted the Jaguars offense a little bit, but when it comes to getting yards, the Jaguars have been doing that this season. They're 12th in total offensive yards per game, so their offense can move the ball. The only question is, will they be able to get the ball in the end zone? That is where they've struggled at points this year. And I think they're going to be able to do that, because on the Titans, their offense, all they got is Derrick Henry. That's all they have, and their defense hasn't looked as good over these previous few weeks as it has earlier in the season. So I think the Jaguars are going to wind up pulling this one out. We're going to get one of their good games, and then next week, maybe when the Jaguars fall apart again.
It does kind of feel like a little seesaw, up and down, up and down, up and down. We never know what they're going to do. But we know what the Broncos are going to do, and that's not score any points. And I'm glad this game got moved out of Sunday Night Football. There's a much better game we are going to talk about for that matchup. But this one's going to be a stinker. We know the Broncos play. We know they drag teams down with them. Their defense is so good, they take away opposing teams' offenses and make them only score 16 points. But 16 points has been just enough to beat plenty of teams, or to lose to plenty of teams this year, thanks to Mr. Limited being their quarterback. As for the Chiefs, I don't think you can do that to the Chiefs at the same time. I think the Chiefs are going to be able to get at least 24-25, and this one's not going to be particularly close. Russ is cooked. The Broncos' defense is cooked. They're frustrated. They're tired of Mr. Unlimited. They want a new quarterback in there, and they're going to start slipping just a twinge. These two teams were supposed to be at a similar level at this point in the year when we made our predictions of the preseason. The Broncos stink. They have fallen apart. They're an organization of losers. They have mortgaged their future for the second best quarterback on the Seahawks roster, maybe the third best, depending on how we want to view Drew Lock. And I'm just disappointed. That's the best word. Disappointed in what they have shown me this year. The Chiefs win this one.
The only thing I wrote down for my notes on this game was just LOL, because the Broncos don't have a chance at beating the Chiefs. If they pull this victory out, I will be shocked, and it'll be ghost of Russell Wilson past playing on the field, because he has been by far the worst quarterback in the NFL this season after Baker Mayfield showed up and, did his thing on Thursday. So,
allegedly, we haven't seen it yet. Come on.
I mean, that I said after he did his thing, obviously it's allegedly, but Russell Wilson is awful. If you watch some of the film breakdowns on YouTube, he's pathetic. He doesn't have anything put together. You can blame the coaching all you want, but he's just not going to be able to get it done. And the thing I find hilarious is when I made a video prior to the season is I said, do we really think Russell Wilson's going to be better than when he was with the Seahawks? It's embarrassing that there were Broncos fans out there who convinced themselves Courtland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy were on DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett's level. That just has never been the case and will never be the case. So that's kind of been a sidebar to this conversation, but that's also something that I think was hilarious fans were even thought was possible prior to the season.
Broncos country is riding to the glue factory. On to Seattle. And we've got Geno Smith taking on Sam Darnold, the battle of former New York Jets quarterbacks, which will see one of them be thoroughly humiliated. And we know who it's going to be. If Baker performs and leads, say, a 98-yard game-winning drive on Thursday night, it will be very apparent that the Panthers made the wrong decision in keeping Darnold and keeping PJ Walker. Baker was clearly the answer there. They didn't have the weapons around to make it work. They didn't have a good offensive line. They got bad defense, got bad receivers with the exception of Moore, and just couldn't make it happen. The Seahawks, on their end, have it figured out. They've got a good line. They've got a good set of receivers. They've got a very solid running back duo. Even if Kenneth Walker isn't on the field, their running game is solid. And they've got who I believe is a top 5 quarterback, at least for this year, in Geno Smith. Played phenomenal, amazing quarterback, efficient, does what he is told, and does it extremely well. And that's all you need to do to beat the Panthers. The Panthers stink. The Seahawks are going to humiliate them on the road in Seattle, and the Legion of Boom, the 12, is going to get very loud.
Yeah, when you lose your head coach midway through the season, when you trade away your best offensive player midway through the season, it's hard to win football games. And also when Ben McAdoo is your offensive coordinator, your offense isn't going to be that overly successful. If Sam Darnold even plays well, they're not going to have a great chance. When you're playing the Seahawks, who have Geno Smith, they have DK Metcalf, they have Tyler Lockett, hopefully Kenneth Walker's healthy so he can get me points in some of my fantasy teams, but the Seahawks are overall a much better team offensively. Now, their defense hasn't been that great over the last 2 to 3 weeks, but it's going to be good good enough to beat the Panthers. I mean, most teams are good enough to beat the Panthers. So the Seahawks should win this one in relatively easy fashion.
You've got to hope. If they drag this one out, I'm going to clown on them a little bit. Speaking of clowning on, the 49ers are going to clown, nay, whip, whatever you want to call it, on the Buccaneers. They just beat the Dolphins, who I believe are one of the best teams in the AFC, certainly top 3, by a convincing margin. Sure, there were some coaching issues on the Dolphins sideline. That's neither here nor there. They are going to emasculate the Buccaneers. I don't care if they're 500. I don't care that Brady is going on a hot streak since he got divorced. I don't care that their people are starting to get healthy. It doesn't matter. The 49ers have an amazing defense. They've got deep offensive weapons, and they have Mr. Irrelevant, who is going to show Tom Brady what it really means to be a late-round sleeper quarterback. You think getting drafted in the 6th round is an impressive story? Oh, you 6th round, 6 Super Bowls. Right. Try being the last pick in the draft, coming in, beating the GOAT, and then going on 7 Super Bowl runs in a row. That's what's about to happen. The 49ers are about to run through the Buccaneers and start their playoff push now.
You know, Isaiah, you're starting to frustrate me because we are agreeing way too much in this podcast, and it's starting to go a little off-brand for us. Because I think the easy prediction for most people would be that Tom Brady's going to win this one. The 49ers have no chance with Brock Purdy. But like you said, that is not what's going to happen. We are going to see a passing of the torch. Brock Purdy is going to be the next great quarterback that's a late pick and is going to have a great career. He did a great job last week against the Dolphins with limited preparation leading up to the game and went out and beat that Dolphins team in convincing fashion. Granted, he has that really good team all around him, but that's what you need early in your career when you're trying to become a good quarterback. So the 49ers are going to win this one. Buccaneers have been struggling, and Brock Purdy is going to start to build a name for himself.
Brock Purdy already built a name for himself. He beat one of the best teams in the AFC, and now he's about to beat one of the middest teams in the NFC. 6-6, baby. Soon to be 6-7. On to Sunday Night Football. And I've said it once, I've said it 1,000 times. Tua Tagovailoa is quite possibly the most hated quarterback, at least for his first 2 years. And then he turned it around. I told you after the Ravens game that he did right. He was a top 5 quarterback. He's been a top 5 quarterback this year. He's been riding that march. He's been phenomenal. He's only has 1 loss as a starter. He is making that sweet magic happen with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. And Gesicki. Can't forget Gesicki. And it truly is a phenomenal thing to watch. He is going to run rampant on the Chargers defense. Their defense is bad. Their secondary is banged up. The front 7's injured. And I don't care that Justin Herbert is getting his weapons back. I don't care that he's got a better arm, that he's a social media quarterback. He's not as good as Tua. And Tua Tagovailoa is going to shine in this game. The Dolphins will win. They will beat the Chargers. And Herbert will be clowned by everyone.
Well, the thing that is so, the only reason I want the Chargers to win is because I'm so tired of the cult of Tua and how they treat Justin Herbert. Because I love both quarterbacks, but the way they have this conversation and debate is just ridiculous. It's like they're so upset that Tua was this quarterback that was hated on and, you know, he wasn't getting enough leeway. But then they go around and don't objectively analyze the Justin Herbert conversation and just bash him into the ground over and over again. And Keenan Allen's missed a majority of the season. Mike Williams has missed a lot of games this year. Their offensive line is the worst in the NFL. Justin Herbert has been hit 37 more times than Tua has been hit this season. So the Chargers offensive line is horrible. Keenan Allen, even when he's been back, he hasn't looked like the elite Keenan Allen of old or of younger, depending on what phrasing you want to use there. So for those reasons are why the Chargers are going to lose. They are the worst football team. The Dolphins are better defensively. They have much better weapons. They're healthy on offense, and they're going to win this game. Whatever. I disagree, but I like both of them. I mean, I'm not letting you put me in a position to slander Tua just because you want to trash Herbert.
Look, man. You can say what you want about Acho, but there is a certain point he makes about Herbert being a social media quarterback. He has some phenomenal world-class throws that maybe one other quarterback could make, but he has had some very boneheaded ends to games. He has thrown game-losing interceptions, and I don't think that's talked about enough. Now, the game to end the week, that we discuss the high marquee matchup between 2 first-round quarterbacks who have been pitted in harsh opposition to each other. We have Mac Jones taking on Kyler Murray. Remains unclear. We go from Tua and Herbert duking it out to this matchup, to 2 teams who are offensively inept, who are defensively dreadful, who are questionably coached, questionably with a C, mind you, and are on the way out of relevance. The Cardinals made the playoffs last year only to be humiliated. The Patriots made the playoffs last year only to be humiliated. You know what's not going to happen this year? Neither of these teams is going to make the playoffs, but both are going to be humiliated. Now, in terms of who gets humiliated tonight, look, little Kyler is a young quarterback still. He's got a lot of issues with his game. He's very me-oriented. He's hated in his locker room in all likelihood because he's been playing Call of Duty 24/7, 366. On the other sideline, you've got Bill Belichick, and while he's not good offensively at all, I got Matt Patricia calling plays. Belichick is one of the greatest defensive minds in football history. He is going to bully and exploit a young quarterback in Kyler Murray. Murray is going to be hemmed into the pocket and trapped and trashed. And if Kyle Allen gets a start, good night, Irene. It doesn't matter. Patriots offense isn't going to need to score points because the Cardinals might get shut out. This one's going to New England.
Kyle Allen doesn't play for the Cardinals.
Hold on a second. Who am I thinking of?
I was like, Kyle Allen plays for the Texans. Colt McCoy.
Colt McCoy. Potato. Okay. My apologies on that, dear viewers. I own both those two guys on my 32-man fantasy football roster. That should be a testament to how that season's going. And I got those two mixed up. But Colt McCoy and Kyle Allen, very similar. Colt McCoy much better in college, obviously. Gotta give him some respect there. But both just not good NFL quarterbacks. If one of them gets a start, the Cardinals are extra done. If Kyler could start, the Cardinals are regular done. Patriots win this one. Who's a quarterback.
I don't care who's starting at quarterback. Well, actually, I do care. Because that is going to wind up what decides the game. You mentioned the Patriots have done a great job with young quarterbacks. But what they've not done a good job with over the years is containing mobile quarterbacks, and that is exactly what Kyler Murray is. And when you take a look at I know I've done this spiel before, but when you take a look at the quarterbacks the Patriots have beat this season, Sam Ellinger once, Zach Wilson twice, Jared Goff, Jacoby Brissett, and Mitch Trubisky. One of those quarterbacks is still a starting quarterback in the NFL. All their wins have basically come against backup level quarterbacks. And when they're playing Kyler Murray, I know he has a lot of haters. He has a lot of people who don't like him. He is better than all of the quarterbacks I named, and the Cardinals have a very good receiving core. DeAndre Hopkins, Marquise Brown is back. I don't even know what's happening with Robbie Anderson, but he's also on the roster. Rondell Moore, hopefully, I don't know if he's healthy or not, but that's good enough to beat this Patriots team who doesn't have a lot of talent offensively, and they're to keep up with quarterbacks that are more than competent. And I think Kyler Murray's more than competent, although he's not as good as I once thought he was during his rookie season, let's say.
Oh, Tristan, little Kyler is going to be a big disappointment. You should have given up on him early like I did. You should have seen the signs. You should have realized a crippling Call of Duty addiction can level even the most talented of athletes. But here we are, you still give him faith. Anywho, that has been our predictions for Week 14 of the NFL season. Let us know what you think down in the comments below. Be sure to come back after the fact and tell us how right we were about the Rams-Raiders game and wrong about everything else. And we will see you next week.